They fined me $700 for leaving a rain barrel behind the barn, said it was a visual blight. They even taped the notice right onto my daughter's swing set. That's when I realized this wasn't about appearances. It was about control. My name's Jack Monroe, and this is how a quiet widower from Maple Hollow, Tennessee, ended up turning his little ranch into the biggest HOA nightmare in county history. I wasn't looking for a fight. My wife, Emma, passed a few months before all this, and keeping our 11-acre place running was the only thing holding me together. Our daughter, Lily, was 8 then. She'd bring lemonade out to the barn and talk to the cows like they were old friends. That land had her mother's laugh in the wind, her fingerprints on every fence post. So when the Homeowners Association sent their first citation, unauthorized rustic fixtures, I laughed it off. Rustic? That was the word she used for our life. I figured they'd move on. They didn't. A week later came another letter, unapproved livestock enclosure, $500 fine, $50 per day if not corrected. I measured that pen myself. 42 feet inside the setback, every inch compliant with county code. But reason doesn't matter when people decide you're a problem. Then one morning, a woman named Gloria Brent, HOA president, showed up in a linen blazer so white it could blind a crow. She looked around, sniffed the air, and said, "We're trying to elevate the neighborhood image, Mr. Monroe." I asked her if barbed wire had gone out of style for cattle, and she didn't laugh. She handed me a glossy binder, 300 pages of rules, and said, "You'll want to stay current." That night, I sat at the kitchen table with a pot of bad coffee, flipping through that binder like it was a Bible for control freaks. Every line reeked of power dressed as community standards. Then I found something strange. Article 9, Section 3, said any parcel over 10 acres could withdraw from the association if it held an easement older than the HOA's charter. My granddad had one, recorded in 1962, giving us water rights from the spring that ran under the whole subdivision. I dug out the old deed from a cracked leather folder. The ink was faded, but the law didn't care about color. It cared about time. Still, I didn't play my hand. I needed to know why they wanted me gone. So I called Earl Denton, a buddy who worked in the county appraiser's office. He dug into the plats, whistled low, and said, "Jack, they're pumping water from your line into that fancy clubhouse pond." That hit me square in the chest. They were stealing from the same spring Emma and I used to water our cattle. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I just started documenting everything. Letters, timestamps, photos. Every violation became another piece of my puzzle. 3 weeks later, they sent a deputy for a compliance check. Poor man looked embarrassed to even be there. He glanced at the notice flapping in the wind, tipped his hat, and said quietly, "Ain't my kind of law, sir." When he drove off, I realized I wasn't just defending a fence. I was defending the idea that rules should serve people, not cage them. So I built my evidence, one sleepless night at a time. Then fate handed me an ally. The HOA's maintenance foreman, Caleb Wright, pulled up one morning as I was patching a post. I offered him coffee. He stayed for 2 hours. Turns out, he hated that board as much as I did. "They've been diverting your line for 2 years, he muttered. Said it was temporary. He even showed me photos on his phone, the pump, the valve, the date. Proof. I forwarded the pictures to myself for a timestamp, and that night I finally called my attorney, Maria Lopez. She flipped through my binder, smiled slow, and said, "Jack, you've got them by the county code. Let them keep digging their own hole. Every extra fine strengthens your claim." So I did nothing. I waited. They sent more citations, unapproved mailbox color, grass too tall, unauthorized structure that didn't exist. Each one went into a new folder labeled bad faith. I didn't argue. I let silence bruise their ego. Then came the board meeting. I walked in wearing the only suit I owned, the one from Emma's funeral. Gloria sat up front, smiling like she'd already won. "We've issued Mr. Monroe 6 citations totaling $3,200, she said into the mic. "Failure to comply may result in a lien." I raised my hand. Under Tennessee Property Code 29-006, you're required to offer a chance to cure before recording a lien. You skipped that step. She smirked. "Maybe this community just isn't the right fit for you, Mr. Monroe." That sentence sealed her fate. Discriminatory tone, public record, witnesses. I clicked my pen and wrote the timestamp. The next morning, I filed a complaint with the county ombudsman. Once that process starts, An HOA can't legally enforce or collect fines until the review ends. But they didn't know that. A week later, an inspector from the water division showed up. Said someone filed a complaint about an unpermitted tap. I pointed him behind the clubhouse. 2 days later, he returned with a citation, unauthorized water diversion, fines up to 10 grand per day, addressed to Maple Hollow HOA. That was the day their pond turned from pride to poison. By the next month, things spiraled. Their trucks blocked my driveway. They photographed my property, even Lily's treehouse. I filmed everything, one-party consent, perfectly legal. When Gloria shouted that I was killing the spirit of the community, I told her calmly, spirit doesn't override title deeds. Then came the county's audit. They found missing funds, $12,000, conveniently matching the water fine they'd paid from HOA accounts. I smiled for the first time in weeks. The stage was set. At the next meeting, I waited until Gloria declared no irregularities were found. Then I stood up. Correction, I said, sliding a copy of the audit onto the table. There's a $12,000 disbursement labeled landscaping that matches a county penalty invoice. You used community money to pay your fine. Gasps rippled through the room. And right then, as if fate had planned the cue, the county inspector himself walked in. Evening, folks, he said. Just verifying public records. The silence could have swallowed a pin. Mr. Monroe's right, he added. This HOA has been drawing from a private line without legal rights. The room erupted. Neighbors who'd ignored me for months were suddenly furious at her. Someone yelled, "We voted for transparency, not theft." Gloria's voice cracked as she tried to restore order, but it was over. The county froze their authority pending review. Within 48 hours, half the board resigned. I didn't celebrate. I just went home, sat on the porch, and listened to the windmill creak again. It sounded like Emma laughing. But the story didn't end there. I realized destroying the HOA wouldn't fix what they'd broken. It would just leave a vacuum for new tyrants. So I wrote something new, the Maple Hollow Reform Charter. 2-year term limits, public budgets, recorded meetings, dues rollback for 2 years. A fair system. At the next community gathering, I stood up and said, "You want continued access to that water line? Fine. Sign this charter, and it's yours under county oversight." The room went quiet except for the shuffle of chairs. They voted. 36 in favor, 2 against. The charter passed. That was my second reversal. The day power turned into accountability. Now, months later, things look different. Kids play outside again. The new board posts every expense online. The pond, the same one they built with stolen water, is now a teaching site for local schools. Sometimes reporters still call it Monroe versus Maple Hollow, but I just laugh. I didn't win a case. I just reminded people that laws belong to everyone. Every rule starts noble until someone uses it for fear. The trick is keeping your rules humble. So yeah, if you've ever been cornered by folks hiding behind community standards, remember, truth doesn't shout. It just waits for the right mic. Now I've told you my story. Here's my question. When an HOA, or any local power, crosses that line between order and control, where do you draw yours? Drop your thoughts below, because next time, it might not be my ranch they come for.